Hello creative friends, this is Joy. So I decided to create a Christmas journal out of this little golden book of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And here I'm trying to remove the tape from the book so that I can separate the front and the back cover from the two signatures in the book, but it's not coming off as easily as it did when I did the one previously for Frida Kahlo. So unfortunately, I was not able to save the tape from this book. And so I'm just doing my best to take that off as much as I can so that I can also get to the staples so I can remove those and get this book apart. And so that's what I'm doing here, is just trying to remove the tape and remove the staples. I decided to go ahead and do this quick Christmas journal and get it posted before Christmas, which is coming up quickly. And then I want to start on the Alice in Wonderland journal next, because I want to spend a little bit more time with that and do some more things with it as far as you know, different elements to that journal. So here I've got it apart, and I ripped the back cover a little bit, so I'm adding a little bit of glue to that. And then I had to figure out what I was going to put in place of that strip that I removed. So I found some washi tape that I thought would work really good with this journal, and decided to glue that on to the front and back cover so that it adds a little bit of a decorative element to the covers and replaces where I had to tear off the tape that was holding this book together. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just using some glue, putting that on there, and then wrapping it around to the other side, adding some more glue, and like I said, wrapping it around. And then I cut off the excess on either end. So I do that to the front and the back cover to finish off that edge. And then trimming off any excess. So then once I got both the front and the back cover taken care of, I needed to cut a piece of chipboard for the spine, and I decided to do a 2¼ inch spine. So that's what I'm doing here, and I decided while I was at it I might as well go ahead and cut the same size spine for the Alice in Wonderland journal that I'm going to do next, and that's the same size that I did for the Frida Kahlo journal. And so I'm measuring the height and then cutting that as well. So that's what I'm doing here, just cutting out a couple of spines with the chipboard for this book and the next one. So then once I have it cut out, I decided on what fabric I wanted to add to the spine, and I'm cutting a piece of fabric that I want to use to cover it, and then another piece, and you'll see how I end up putting this together. I ended up figuring out this when I was doing the Frida Kahlo journal on how to do the spine, because I wasn't sure with that one. I tried a couple things and ended up with doing it this way, which seemed to work really well, and so I decided I'm going to do all three of them like that. So I'm putting down some glue here. It's some Fabri-Tac glue, and then spreading it around with my fingers and getting good coverage on this spine piece, and then putting it down on top of the fabric that I chose for this journal, and making sure that that's pressed down good. And then I'm going around the edges on the inside and also securing, wrapping it around and securing those down. So that's what I'm doing here, and then rubbing it with my fingers so that I don't have like big globby, glue coming seeping through the fabric. So I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do with the corners, and I decided to trim some of the fabric off the corners so that I can not have as much fabric there to where it will bulk up. I don't want it to be bulky on the corners. So I'm trimming off a little bit of that fabric and then adding the Fabri-Tac and to the back and spreading that around and then folding over the side pieces and gluing those down. And when I did this, I realized that there was still a little bit on the corners or the edges sticking out, so I just trimmed that a little bit more to trim it back. So it wasn't, sticking over the edge. So that's what I'm doing there. And then I end up taking another piece of fabric that is like a muslin, and I cut a piece the same size as my other piece of fabric that I'm going to add to this spine. And I want to make sure that, the fabric is, going to cover it. I want to make sure it's not bigger than what the piece of fabric is. So I add the Fabri-Tac to the whole back of this piece of spine, and I use my finger again to spread it around. And then I put on the piece of muslin, and I make sure I kind of, get that in the middle, or put the spine on the muslin, get it in the middle, and press that down. And then I use the Fabri-Tac to put more glue around where the spine is, because I need to adhere the other piece of fabric. And again, I spread that around with my finger and end up having to add more because, of course, the fabric from muslin is soaking up the glue, and then put that other piece on. And then I take my pinking shears and I cut across the fabric that's excess across the top and across the bottom so that it's even with the spine, the height of the spine. And then I trim both sides of the muslin and the fabric together. And here I notice that some of the corners of the spine is not adhered as securely as I'd hoped, so I'm just making sure those are securely adhered. And then I trim both sides with the pinking shears of the muslin and the fabric together. And it just helps give it more of a finished look. And so I'm trimming the other side. And then I'm looking at it and it seems like one side is wider than the other, and I measure it and I'm like, yeah, that's wider, and how much more do I need to cut off? And then I just trim it down a little bit. I don't necessarily care if they're not exact, but I at least want them to be close so that it's not obvious that one is like way wider than the other. So then I put this down in between the book covers, and I mark how far over the book covers that this fabric is going to go, so that I know where to put my Fabri-Tac glue. So I add the Fabri-Tac glue onto the cover, spread it around with my finger, and then I add the cover, bump it up against the spine, and add the cover, and then I add more Fabri-Tac glue on top of the muslin that's now glued to the cover, spread it around with my finger, and then glue down the fabric on top of it so that it gives it, again, a nice finished look. And then I do the same with the other cover, or with the other, the back cover. I believe this is the back cover. Adding more Fabri-Tac glue, spreading it around, butting it up against the spine piece, making sure it's straight, and then gluing that down. And then lifting up the fabric that's going to finish it off, and adding more glue and then spreading it around and gluing that down. So that is my basic cover for this journal. Here I have the signatures, and I'm counting to make sure there's 3 pages per signature. And then here are all the papers that I have that I want to use in this journal. And I'm also going to use this Christmas paper pack that I had in my stash. So I'm just going to go through this and pick out some different pattern papers that I want to use in this journal. And so that's what I'm doing here. And with the Frida Kahlo journal, trying to remember, I think I did 8 pages, or no, 10 pages per signature, and I'm doing 4 signatures. But with this one, I decided to do a few more pages because I decided I'm not going to add as many pockets and stuff as I did with the Frida Kahlo journal. I added a lot of pockets to that. So I ended up having to make a lot of tags and inserts and things for that journal. And so here I'm cutting all these 12 by 12 pieces of paper down to the height of the journal. And then I'm cutting my other pieces of paper down to the height of the journal, which is 8 inches high. And these are, 8 1/4, and of course the 12 by 12 had to be cut down to 8. So that's what I'm doing here, cutting everything down to the height of the journal. And then once I'm done with that, I start making piles, 4 piles, because I'm going to do 4 signatures, and spreading the papers out among the 4 piles. And of course, the first and the third signature is going to have the pages from the book. So those 2 signatures will have 3 less papers in them, so that they can accommodate the 3 extra pages from the book that's going to be added. So that's what I'm doing here. And then the last 2 pieces, or the last couple of pieces, so I've got I believe it's 10 per page, and then I'm adding 3 more from the book to the second and the third, and then so I've got 13 pages in the second and last. So the first and the third will have pages from the book, and then the second and the last will have just all pages from my stash, if that makes sense. So then once I've got my piles and I've counted and everything is, correct, I start folding my papers. So here I've got the pages from the book and the 3 from the first signature, and so I fold all of the pages that's in that pile. And making sure that they're as straight, as I possibly can get them, and even as I can possibly get them. And I've got, all kinds of different papers in here. And I even ended up adding, you'll see in the final, another page, which is a lined paper. So I have my 3 pages from the book, and I have my papers for the first signature, and I start rearranging to see how I want to put this all together, because obviously I don't want, all the pattern paper together. I want to do like, a book page, a pattern paper, a couple of other pages, then a pattern paper, a book page, and a couple other papers. So I'm trying to mix it up and evenly distribute these pages that I have in this first signature. And so I'm looking at it here and making sure that everything's arranged the way I want it, and decided I wanted actually the first signature, or the first page of the book, to be the beginning of the signature, and then, going through and checking the rest of it. Now you can see the pages are a lot wider, and here I'm rearranging, are a lot wider than my papers, and I do end up eventually trimming off 3/16 of an inch, which did not affect the pages at all, but you'll see later on where there's a little bit of a difference in, the pages don't come all the way to the edge anymore, because I do end up from the book pages trimming off just a little bit, so it's closer to the width of the pages that I added. And here I don't like where you can see that muslin there, so I get a Posca pen and decide I'm going to try to color it with that, and that just seemed like it was going to take too long and be too complicated, so I ended up getting some red paint. Luckily I had red paint, and I just go in between that crease there and paint that muslin red, which worked out great because it didn't soak through to the fabric on the inside, which I was a little concerned about, but luckily it did not. So that's what I'm showing you here, so to fix that. So here I have my 4 signatures and checking and see, okay, they fit great. And I got my template, which I created when I made the Frida Kahlo book, and so I figure I'd do the same for this one, and then I'll use it again for the Alice in Wonderland journal when I make it. I'm trying to make sure that I get it placed on the spine evenly, and then I clip it because I don't want it to move. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm getting it straight on there so I can clip it, and I felt like that the needed to be straightened up a little bit, I guess, there. So this part, I wanted to be extra careful because I wanted to make sure that the pages got sewn in correctly and there wasn't an issue once I get them sewed in. And so here I'm just double checking, triple checking, and then I punch my holes. I got a piece of packaging underneath so that, I got something to punch into. I poke my holes, and then pick the book up, and then I'm going through the holes again just to make them wider and making it easier for when I sew. I'm just going to do a quick 3-hole pamphlet stitch, which is my favorite way of sewing journals. It's quick, it's easy, so that's what I'm doing here. And then I take the same template, I gather my pages, and you'll see I got lined paper I end up sticking in the middle of each one of these, and I fold the template down in half or along the lines of one of the rows of holes, and then I use that to poke my holes in each of the signatures. And that's what I'm doing here, is poking all the holes in the signatures. And I'm, paper clipping them together and making sure that they stay, together. So here's the second one, and I'm just poking the holes in that, and I continue on for all 4. I'm getting my string that I want to use, and which is this yellow string, and it matches the fabric for the spine. And I go 2.5 times, and then I cut 4 more pieces the same length. Since I've got 4 signatures I'm going to sew in the book. So I take a piece of string and I put it on a needle, and I take my last signature, that's what I like to start with first. I go put it through the middle hole in the signature and in the spine. I come up through the top hole. I go down to the bottom hole, and then I come back up through the middle hole. And I make sure that end of one the ends of the strings are on either side of the string that's running down the middle from top to bottom, and then I tie a knot. So I make sure that one end is on one side and the other is on the other, and then I can remove the paper clips. And I take the second one and continue sewing in the signature the same way. I go in the middle hole, leave a little bit of a tail, go through the top, then go through the bottom, and then go back through the middle, and then tie it off. So like I said, this is a pretty easy one to do, just the 3-hole quick pamphlet stitch. Pull it tight and then tie it several times to make sure it's tight. Also, what I end up doing is after I trim off, the excess, I'll add a little touch of glue just to make sure that it doesn't come apart. So I've got them all sewed in now, and I've got these offcuts from the pattern paper. So I decided that I'm going to use that to make pockets and to make tags. So I'm just verifying the width of the pockets, and I'm cutting it down. I want 3-inch high pockets, and then cutting the width, which is 4 3/4, or 4 and actually it looked like it was a little bit wider. Yeah, 4 3/4. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just cutting down the size of the pockets. And then here I'm decided to make some tags, and I'm just verifying like what size, what width, all that of the tags that I need to make. So, because instead of you watching me cut a bunch of pockets, which I did cut more, I just wanted to show you how I'm also going to make tags. So I cut a strip in half, so they're 6 inches tall. I round the bottom, the corner of each tag on the bottom. I cut a triangle off the top. I move it to the other side and cut that, and then use that for cutting all of my triangles. And then I get a hole punch and I punch a hole in the top. So that's how I made my tags. So I ended up doing a bunch of pockets and a bunch of tags for this journal. And here I decided that I needed to go around the edges with some ink. So here I'm just edging the tag with some ink. And to finish those off, or to, add some edging to it. Here is a bunch of printables that I found in my stash that I felt like I could use for adding things to this journal. So off camera I did cut a bunch of those up, and then here I've got a bunch of die cuts that I decided that I was going to use to decorate some of the tags, well, all of the tags, actually these particular tags, and decorate the journal with as well. So here I'm just gluing on these die cuts onto, instead of showing you all of them, I'm just showing you here the last couple that I had left to decorate. So I felt like the tags need a little something, and as you can see, I already added ribbons to all of the tags. So off camera I went ahead and just cut and added the ribbons, and then added die cuts for decorations, and here I'm finishing up the last couple tags, and I'm making sure that I glue all around the edges of these as well as I can, because I don't want any issues whenever I put these into the pockets to have it hanging up and catching, so I make sure I get as close to the edge as I can around all of the die cuts that I add to these tags. So that's what I'm doing here, finishing up this last one with some presents and some stockings. And then you can see up in the top there, I've got some piles, and those are piles of things that I found in my stash, from printables, and from other things that I decided, that are Christmas themed and that I could use to stuff this journal with, the pockets. And then I have some other um, die cuts and embellishments and stuff, and here's the rest of the tags that I'm going to use to do the decorations of the journal. And then here's some more tags. So I'm doing a big tag, a little tag, and then two cards for each pocket. So I put in a big tag, a little tag, a card, a big card, a little card, and then I end up taking one of the embellishments I have and gluing that onto the pocket. And unfortunately, I didn't realize I was off camera, but I basically, like I said, just took a one of these and glued it on. And you'll see at the end of the video, I do a complete flip through to show you the whole journal, completed journal. So here again, a big tag, a little tag, a big card, a little card, and then I glue on a decoration to the pocket. Because I felt like the pockets were kind of plain and could use a little decorating too. And I glued that on to the pocket and continued on. And again, I finished stuffing this journal off camera because of course this takes a little bit of time to do. I think I worked on it last week and this week, so it came together rather quickly. So here I got the rest of the die cuts, another bunch of die cuts, some stickers, and so now I want to go through the journal and just add some more embellishments to the journal, to some of the pages that are kind of plain. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm looking to see what embellishments that I can add to the pages. And some of the things I added were die cuts, and some of them were stickers. And so that I wanted to, like I said, do a little bit more decorating in this journal. And so that's what I'm doing here. And here's a Christmas tree I thought looked cute on this page. And again, I'm trying to go around every edge and making sure I get them glued down well. And I also use the glue when I glued the pockets down. I don't think I mentioned that. I glued the pockets down just on 3 edges. And so here is the spine dangle that I made. That in my last video I showed you how I made spine dangles for all 3 of these journals. And I'm attaching this piece here to the top of the journal. I'm trying to open it up so I can slip it over the spine. And then I poke a hole through where that hole is. And I try to put the brad in there, but it's not going through easily, so I try to make the hole bigger. Still having trouble, so I get my other awl, which has even a bigger, I can make a bigger hole. So I was able to make a bigger hole, so I put the brad through and then splayed the feet on the inside and then clipped on the spine dangle, and there you go. There's the completed journal, Christmas journal. And here I'm going to show you a complete flip through, and you can see the pockets and the tags and the decorations and the pages from the book that have been added. The first signature has 3 of the pages, and the third signature has 3 of the pages. So I really like the way this turned out. It turned out really cute. I really like the way the Frida Kahlo one turned out as well. And I can't, wait to get started on the Alice in Wonderland journal, which I'm going to do next and do a lot more with it. So I hope you guys like this video. Like I said, I just want to do a quick one. A lot of this was shown in the last videos, multiple videos I did for the Frida Kahlo journal in more detail. So you can go back and watch those. This was pretty much made the same, just not as many pockets, but a few more pages. And the Alice in Wonderland journal, like I said, I'll be working on that here next. So I really appreciate you checking out my videos, and if you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, you could subscribe to my channel to see more. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I appreciate them all. And here I'm just showing you the rest of this journal, flipping through. That's the third signature with the second set of pages from the book. And then the last signature. With all of the decorations, the embellishments, the tags. And I like to make the piles for the tags and embellishments because then it spreads out more evenly across the journal. So I was really happy about that. I had 2 pockets in the first and the third signature, and I had 4 pockets in the second and the last signature. So I thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.